Hey, everybody. It's Malik Foster, and welcome to the Counterpoise Podcast. I'm one of your co hosts today. I'm joined by my fellow co hosts.
Hey, everybody. I am your second co-host. My name is Samantha Adams.
And I'm the last co-host, Everett Stevenson. And today we have another good topic today. In the world of so much divisive talk, especially when it comes to relationships, here at Counterpoise, we like to try to bring fresh perspective to some of these conversations or a more wanted one. And today we're looking at the issue of male leadership, and in particular, if a man can lead if if he doesn't know how, in particular, or if he's learning how, rather. So we got a little clip that we're going to play today that's going to kind of touch on a lady speaking on if she believes that she can be led by a man who may not have had any leadership experience. And then today we're going to go into some discussion in regards to, what we think male leadership is and some other things. So in a second, we're going to have that clip up for you guys, but, All right, so we're about to get ready to go ahead and show you guys one of the clips that sparked the conversation for this topic. It's an Instagram video from his daughter, 7.
That's a convicting question right there, because us women, we like information, we like details, because it provides a sense of security and stability. And this isn't bad, however, it can come from the wrong place. When we know all the details and we got the who, what, when, where, how, why, that's when we will determine if we move or not. But is that what it actually means to be led? When we have this mentality, we will unknowingly, number one, put a standard of perfection on that man, and number two, we will not give him room to grow as a leader. When you read the Bible, it says God told Abraham to leave his father and his mother's house and go into a land that he will show him. Now, I don't want to focus so much on Abraham. I want us to look at the life of Sarah. She followed her man even when she did not have that much information. And that must be something that we commend her for, right? So the revelation that she got out of this, the revelation that she had, and which I believe many of us women need to grab on hold to, is, can your trust be so deeply embedded in God that the trust that you have for your man is in the knowing that God will lead him? Can your man lead you?
It's definitely a lot to unpack there. I guess I'll kind of go first and jump on it. It was a very interesting video about how a man can lead without, I guess, any experience. So from a man perspective, I'm coming from a man's perspective. My thoughts on it is, yes, a man can lead with a lack of experience. However, a man does need experience to become an effective leader and to become an effective man. That's why, generally speaking, a lot of ladies and a lot of positions of power, people are gravitate to men who have experience or older, because it's not just about.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but can you first describe what a leader is, like from the perspective of a man?
Oh, okay. So I think from a perspective of a man, a leader is a person who, he commands attention. He's respected by his peers, and people follow that person due to their accomplishments, right? And accomplishments, status, power, their influence, wealth to a certain extent, but it depends on how they use it, because, some people can just be born with money. That doesn't make you a leader, right? But if you accomplish something, you're influential, you have a certain status, that's what determines if you're a leader as a man. That's what I would define as a man. And I think some people would agree with some of the parts I said. Most men would, because that's who we look up to, men who have status, who have power, influence. You can throw money in there. But I want to lead the financial aspect, but those other core things, I think that's what a leader is. Thanks, Sam, for bringing that up.
Well, for me, I think a male leader is somebody that, in addition to some of the things that Malik was saying as far as providing a certain level of security, that comes in like ways. I feel like a physical level of comfort and security, an emotional one, ideally and a spiritual one as well, and then also a financial one, one that just kind of lets them feel like they can trust that. I think as well, it comes with a level of wisdom that, should also be in display, that shows that, that they're wise in the decisions that they're making and the way that they prep. And it also shows, in my mind, a level of care beyond self, not only just for family, but for the community as a whole, and understanding that, you can use whatever powers that you have to try to, affect as many people as you can to be and become more and to do better. So those are the type of things that I think when I look at what a male leader is, that I believe that they are. Sam, how about you let us know what, from a female's perspective, what you feel like leadership in the male looks like?
I think, generally speaking, right, a leader looks like all of the things that you guys described, but I think like security plays a huge part, right? Because women require security. So within that, in order for a woman to feel secure, she has to be willing to to follow her leader, right? She has to be with the plan, right? She may not necessarily know the whole plan, but she has to have a certain level of trust. So he has to be able to foster that and garner that trust within her. He also has to have some levels of accountability. He has to be able to be a person of action. Because I think a lot of times we forget that people can garner all of these qualities, but if they are not about that action and all they do is talk, then what are you leading, right? You're just literally just leading a conversation as opposed to leading in action and leading in growth and movement, right? And he has to have certain qualities that woman is willing to subscribe to. Because the thing about women, even though we are nurturers and helpmates and all of that, we have to be able to subscribe to what the goal is. Because if the goal is to go rob 10 banks and that ain't what you're trying to do, then you're not about to follow that lead. But if it's to open 10 businesses and that's what you with, then you're going to be able to, you're more inclined to be able to follow that lead. And sometimes, there has to be certain levels of understanding, right? Because there's things that man may do that may not make sense to you, especially as a woman, because us as women, typically we are more emotional creatures. It doesn't mean that we're not logical, right? I think that sometimes it gets lost because men are so logical. But it's easier for us to see certain things based on our intuition and things like that are happening on the outside, whereas men typically have tunnel vision. And so that's how we're able to help that man, but we help him to lead. We don't necessarily, it doesn't mean that a woman cannot lead. It just means that when we follow the leadership of our mate or of our man, then we have to be able to feel secure and trust him and just understand that he has to have some level of accountability, action, and self-awareness too, right? To really be able to say, hey, listen, this is what's going on with me. I may need this space. I may need you to do X. You see what I'm saying? Like, you got to be able to be self-aware in order to be able to guide people and be able to delegate. You know what I'm saying? A good leader is also someone who's able to delegate and say, hey, listen, I need you to do this. You can't do everything on your own, even as a leader. And so I think that those are some of the qualities that women typically look for in a man when you're talking about leadership in a relationship.
I also wanted to add discipline. I think that, when we started talking about it, I was listening to everybody. I'm like, yo, we could go up on traits that, you know what I'm saying, almost for the whole show. But there's certain ones, though, I just think that just have to be displayed and stated because it's almost vital to, a person's ability to succeed, a person's ability to follow through and to actually execute on the things that they say that they're going to do and that they plan to do. And I think, self-awareness, like you said, discipline, accountability, all of those things are decisions that have to be done. Having a level head, but also being able to understand and feel things. I think there's a lot of things that comes within leadership from a male as well, and when you said delegating, that's a very important task because you have to be able to have the discernment to have the right people in the right positions. You know what I'm saying? Understanding who's strengths and who are people who can be assets in your plan, and you guys come together on a plan for work for both of y'all in order to help achieve that. And I think that's comes with a level of humility as well, being able to be humble, being able to be relatable to most of the individuals that you may deal with on a day-to-day, to have a level of likability in that sense, in that regard. Also levels and traits of a positive male leader or a man who's worthy of leadership or a leadership position. So yeah, I think part of that question though that was raised as well, and I wanted to see, maybe Malik, if you had something to say. I don't know if you was about to say something. But
yeah, I was gonna just add having a level of firmness too, because you can't be somebody that can't stand firm in your decision making. You know what I'm saying? If as a leader, you have to be able to stand firm in your beliefs or whatever it is that you're trying to do. Because if you can listen, it's nothing wrong with listening to what everybody has to say, but you can't follow what everybody else has to say, because then at that point, you're no longer a leader. You should be able to heed counsel, but you don't have to always take their advice. Like, you should definitely listen, but at the same time, you have to use your own sense of discernment, like you just said, in order to be able to remain firm in what it is that you're trying to do.
Yeah. So I wanted us to kind of talk about how what she said in the video, man leading without experience. So in my opinion, I think a man can lead without experience because, you have to start from somewhere, right? There's always a starting point from something. Yeah, you might be new to leadership, new to leading, but you can lead without experience because we all have to start from somewhere. And there's nothing wrong with a lady, I guess, since we're talking about, heterosexual relationships in this specific sense. There's nothing wrong with a lady following a man who's new to leadership. If he's trying to, lead her in a direction, he's learning, right? And there's nothing wrong with, working with a man that's not already built, who's not already made, who's not already an established leader, but who is working his way towards that leadership, right? There's nothing wrong with that because, if we look at it at the opposite end, a person who's following the leader might not be the perfect follower, right? They still have to learn, hey, the rules of engagement, like, hey, I shouldn't be doing this or that, undermining the leadership, making the person who I'm supposed to be following, less than, emasculating the man, such stuff like that. So people on both ends, the following and the leadership end, are both learning all the time. So it's nothing wrong with, to me, a woman specifically following a man who lacks experience in leadership.
Yeah, I think when you're talking about lacking an experience or even example, I think that when you're talking about a man, especially one that grew up in a household without a father figure in the household, he doesn't have an example of a male leader. He may have the example of his mom, right? A female leader, which is fine. But the example of a male leader is always going to be different from that of a woman because men and women lead differently. Like, that's just the truth. We may be able to obtain a common goal, you know what I mean? And maybe even certain things may be the same, but everything is not gonna be the same, because men and women just think differently, and that's okay. We're supposed to have variety. Is the spice of life, you know what I mean? But I do believe that without the experience of leadership, I think that it's perfectly acceptable to be able to lead without experience. The reason I say that is because as humans, we're always evolving, always growing, and just always learning. And so, you die when you stop evolving, you're dead, right? So you're always going to be learning, you're always going to be evolving. And so nobody has it all figured out. I don't care how much it may seem like we all have it figured out. We don't. It may look like it. We might be real good at playing it off, real good at being able to fake it, whatever. But the truth of the matter is everybody does not have it figured out. Matter of fact, nobody got it figured out. And for a woman to be able to follow a man without him having it all figured out, it requires trust. And that's why I said that before. Like when a woman follows a man, she has to feel secure in his leadership. He has to make her feel secure, and she has to trust him. If she doesn't trust him, then she doesn't feel secure in his leadership, and it's going to be turmoil. Because at that point, she's going to be trying to lead. She's going to be functioning in her masculine energy. It's going to be a whole lot of bumping heads, right? So I think that, it's perfectly possible. Matter of fact, I think most women that follow their men are following somebody who's growing. And I think with regards to having examples, like I think that because there's a lack of examples in so many households, especially Black households in this country, there's different sources, and we can get into that in a second. I know E wants to go ahead and chime in.
Yeah, no, I think you guys were hitting on it really well. One, that leadership is a skill set that is developed over time, and that requires that experience. You know what I'm saying, in order to gain it. And I think one of the things that I just wanted to add to that conversation was some of the factors that we can look towards to see, like, if a person is even ready to take those steps towards those type of positionings, right? That could be that consistency in the things that they're doing. You know what I'm saying? The willingness to continue to show up and do it. You know what I mean? And not, waver in their efforts or waver in their consistency in the task at hand. I also think that too is looking to see, like you said, Sam, like if they have a plan and have they been, executing on it in some fronts, like you said, as we always say, rather, a lot of times women can incubate whatever type of situation you put them in. And so if you're in a winning situation and y'all can go ahead and get into understanding, then that situation can grow into a greater situation if, you guys are working in tandem like that. And so I definitely feel like, adding that level of understanding, having a foundation for someone to come and see, that there has been some commitment that's been made towards, that plan. Those things are all things that I think that also helps women decide, as well as men show that they are putting themselves in a position to be a leader and should be trusted with that ability. But yeah, to your point that you're also making, and Brown, as far as examples, sometimes I think when, we've seen positive and we see negative examples sometimes of male leaderships. On some of the con sides, it could be sometimes in the public eye and what's necessarily shown. A lot of times that the imagery of a Black male in particular isn't always the most positive ones. And so sometimes if that's what someone else is looking at, not knowing per se any positive Black males in their life, or not being able to decipher maybe, what is entertainment versus what's reality, listening to certain, music or watching how certain celebrities may act could tend to lead someone to having or developing maybe a bad or poor choice of leadership skills as a male. And that's one example that we have. Again, it goes on to others, such as, maybe not having someone, male father figure or uncle or, grandfather, someone around to kind of help, show and provide an example of, say, a positive image of someone who can show you those traits that we described earlier, as far as being a leader, and who can show you, what that looks like for someone to get that done. And I think as men, we all can also look at the fact that sometimes you might not always be able to appreciate things in the moment because you don't necessarily know what it's like until you have to experience it or it's lost, right? One thing is a guy that we can always say that is being a kid and having the responsibilities that you don't have versus coming into the real world and realizing that, hey, there is no, opportunities for Section 8s for men, or WIC programs for a guy, or if you will, even if he is trying to help in a family situation, it's like, you need to go make your situation work. You need to make something happen for your family. You as a man need to provide. Like, so, that doesn't always lead a lot of leniency or plans for other guys to have like a fallback. So, being able to see somebody that can provide those type of skill sets, who can provide that type of environment, is important. And you can pick up on a lot of traits of theirs as they do those things, whether sometimes it's good, some things you might, not do as well, because no one's perfect. But I think that's how you kind of mold your blueprint of how you want to be your own leader as a man.
Yeah, I would echo that. Experience is the best teacher. So, even if you don't have the experience, once you're actually trying to lead somebody, lead a group, lead a household, lead anything, once you gain that experience, make the mistakes, gain the knowledge, learn from others who have done the same thing that you're trying to do. That's how you become a better leader, by taking bits and pieces, the good things and the experiences from others, and learn from them, so you don't make the same mistakes. Or if you do make mistakes, you learn from your mistakes and you grow from that. So even though you don't have the experience that maybe a lady would like, as long as you have that foresight to actually have the discipline and patience and be consistent in your learning and your approach, I think that's a way you can approach it, by looking at different people that you look up to, role models, or people who are in places you want to be. So, whatever profession you are in, maybe you pick somebody and you try to role model after them. You look up to them. So I think
I think too, though, Malik, I push back a little bit on that, because I feel like you always have to have a mindset to think that there's something that you want to do with your life. You got to get to kids to even tell them that they should have a desire to have something to do with their life. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because I think like in an era where there's a lot of like, don't judge me, very, very free. Like, I should be able to do what I want to do. I should not feel any type of pressure or inconvenience about things. You have to tell people that there's a reason for you to be living, that you have a purpose, that it's your job to work on those things. You got to kind of sow that seed so that they can get to the point where you were talking about, where they have a desire or an understanding of where they want to go. And then they're learning on, okay, how do I master when I'm in this lane to be, you know what I'm saying, like such and such. And that's what I want to just kind of add in as well.
Yeah. So like when you talk about that, right, you have to have that self-motivation, that desire inside of yourself that has nothing to do with, your examples or how well you lead or not, but you just having the desire. You could be a bad leader, but if you have that desire and you have the motivation to actually do something, you'll eventually get better at it, right? So that starts with you. That's something that has to either be inside you or something that you want to do. Like what you're saying, the example you gave is basically a situation where somebody is lacking kind of that desire, that discipline, that motivation to actually try to be a good leader or try to improve, even though they do lack that experience. So I actually agree with you on that. Like, a person does have to have that inside of them, because how are you going to lead somebody if you don't have a desire or any motivation to improve or get better? So it definitely starts there. That's the foundation.
one of the things I wanted to add, like, so it's a few things. Number one, when you're talking about leading without an example, right? I touched on this a few minutes ago, that a lot of times when there are men specifically that don't necessarily have a leader in the household, they look to all of these different places, kind of like how you were saying, that maybe they'll look to actors or movies or football players or basketball players, but they also go and look to the streets. And sometimes you can find good, you can actually learn a lot from the most unconventional places, right? And so just because somebody might be in the streets and might not necessarily be doing the right thing, they may still embody great leadership qualities that you can carry over with you and utilize in a positive area, right? And so I think that it's important to not like just put everything in a box, because I do believe that some men can gain great leadership qualities and learn them from the most unconventional places. And one of the other things I wanted to touch on just briefly with regards to the video clip is the thing that she said about women and how women are able to follow men. Like you have to trust in him, that he trusts in God enough to follow him, right? And so I also think that we as women have to be more forgiving and graceful, and remembering that men are still men. They're still people. They're still going to make mistakes. They're still going to bump their head. They're not perfect. You can't expect perfection out of anybody, because, none of us are perfect. And that even in their leadership, sometimes they may not necessarily intentionally lead you into the right space. But at the same time, you still got to try to figure out how to, help him get out of the bad space, right? That's part of being a helpmate and being supportive, right? Because like I said, a man is not always going to make the right decision. It doesn't mean that he's intentionally going out there to make terrible decisions. It's just that sometimes he's not going to make the right one. And women have to do better in choosing a man that they can follow, not just choosing a man that can give them something. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's one of the things that go lost when you're looking at relationships between Black men and Black women in relationships. People looking at what they can receive as opposed to looking to what they can contribute. And I think that helps. As women, we have to be more graceful and allowing men to grow, because with growth comes pain. There's definitely a thing called growing pains, and those pains come from mistakes and experience and things like that. And sometimes you just have to let people experience things in order to get to the quote unquote promised land. You know what I'm saying? So I just wanted to go ahead and add that. And so with that, that kind of segues into, whatever solutions there are. I think that, for women, from a female's perspective, we do have to recognize, like I said before, that everybody isn't always necessarily going to have a great leader example. Like somebody is a male example in their life that's a great leader. Maybe they don't have an uncle or grandfather or dad or even a big brother that's able to give them the tools that they need to be a good leader, and they just pick up these qualities as they go, right? Whether it be from the streets, whether it be from a school teacher or mentor or a coach, whatever it is, however they get it, or they just learn it from bumping their head. I think that we just have to have more grace, especially for our Black men. And Black men, I believe, should also have grace for each other, right? And also be willing to help each other instead of just, I get that everything is a competition, but there's nothing wrong with helping your fellow Black man to grow and be a better man. But I do think that pouring into one another is a solution into cultivating stronger Black male leaders. And in relationship, women just have to have more grace and choose who you can trust. Don't just choose somebody because of what he can give you. Choose somebody that you can honestly trust and honestly, follow and those kinds of things.
Yeah, I was gonna add, like, with me, I think, as stated earlier, trust is a critical piece, you know what I'm saying, with building leadership. And so, and definitely one thing that I think we all know, that if broken, could definitely take a hard path to try to, repair. So that's one thing that, he definitely wants to build and have with whomever, he looks to lead. Um, and experience is something, like you said, is gained, and a lot of times that comes, unfortunately, at the cost of learning it, as we say, the hard way, bumping your head, having to show that you're robust in your desire to achieve whatever your outcome is. Can you get back up? You know what I'm saying? So how fast can you get back up? How quick can you, continue to do the things that you always intended to do, even after taking a hit, you know what I'm saying, or taking a blow in some things. And I think that shows also, like, the fortitude of a guy, that shows, like, we call it grit as well, determination. Are they able to kind of come out of situations and not feel like it defeats them or that it breaks them. Those are things that also come with leadership, and it comes with time. But I think the more that you train young men and women to know that they are leaders, and hopefully allow them to see different types of leadership styles, that will allow them to be well versed in the ability to knowing how they need to adapt to certain situations, and what skill set they need to use in those situations to achieve whatever it is. And again, when we're talking about on the leadership role in a relationship with the man, that comes with a lot of different tools that you need to be using in that time, because as we know, women are ever flowing, ever moving, and you need to be able to stay on point to make sure that she is, feeling like she's in a situation that she can feel comfortable in. So I think those are the things that we need to look to do when we talk about how men lead and how men develop their skill set for leading when they don't necessarily know. I think another thing that she said too, which was critical, was that person being able to have that trust in someone achieving a goal. She mentioned the story of Abraham and Sarah, and how their relationship had to require her to, just kind of trust his vision and trust certain things. And I know a lot of times that can be a very, very much a challenge for a lot of women, because of, like she said, just wanting to have those details, wanting to have that security, wanting to have that level of knowledge and understanding as to, what that plan is. But I think a lot of times us as men know that sometimes you got to go the road less traveled. You know what I'm saying? You got to make your own path, in order to get there. And you might not necessarily have all of the answers at the time, but you know from your experiences that things will work itself out. You will be able to get on the other side. Like, this is all just, part of the program. And so having someone that can understand that and be able to be led in those type of situations is critical. So I would advise all young men who are looking to become leaders, especially in relationships, that you work on trying to develop that understanding of, like, listen, that sometimes I'm gonna need you to just trust, even without the answer. So those are some of the things that I have as far as my conclusion on, how we can lead without experience, and what that hopefully looks like within a relationship.
Yeah. So my quick 3 solutions for the situation with, I guess, both men and women is discipline, patience, and consistency. I think if both people have discipline in terms of, how they're approaching the relationship and the situation, I think that's going to go a long way. And also having patience, but not too patient, right? Overly patient to where it's detrimental, but patient and reasonable means. But what I mean by that is being patient in terms of when you see a person taking actions, giving them time to develop and grow, but obviously not too patient where you obviously see them not growing, they're going in the wrong direction. You don't need to be patient for them to turn that around. So I understand that. And also consistency. You want to look at how consistent the person is and doing what they say they're going to do, and how their actions are. Are they consistent in their actions, trying to get better each day? So those are the three things that I think people should definitely look out for when it comes to this topic. Can a man be a leader without experience? So with that being said, I want to transition us to the book of the month. The book of the month is People's Path to Real Estate Wealth, How to Make Money in Any Market by R. Donahue Peoples. He's one of the best real estate developers from the African-American standpoint in the country. He's a great guy. I have the copy of the book on me right now. Okay, I don't know if y'all can see that, but that's the book. Once again, The People's Path to Real Estate Wealth, How to Make Money in Any Market. So if you're looking into getting into real estate, let me know. So that'd be good. That'd be cool. So the next thing I want to transition us to is the Black Business of the Month. So the Black Business of the Month this month is the Hamilton House. It's a bed and breakfast. It's a place that was by Alexander Hamilton. He's a Black architect. And what else is it? The website is, let me tell it to you guys real quick, HamiltonHowAHouse.com. So once again, HamiltonHowAHouse.com. That's the Black Business of the Month. And I have the quote. So this is a nice inspirational quote by the great Maya Angelou. Do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. So for I think this quote is perfect for today's topic because, you know, a man who's trying to lead without experience, you know, you have to try. And then when you make those mistakes, now you know better. So from that point on, you'll do better. So I think this quote was perfect for today's show. Once again, I want to thank everybody for listening today. That's all I have for us today, unless my co-hosts have any final closing remarks.
My bad. Like, follow, subscribe, and catch us on Wednesday. Instagram, like 8:30.
Yeah. So all of our socials are going to be tagged up here at the end, right along with the link to the book and to the business of the month. In addition to that, guys, we wanted to tell you all thank you for always coming in here, tapping in with us, and really just, you know, showing us love. So yeah, like, share, subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend. Also to make sure you tap in with us on Wednesdays at 8:30 on Instagram. We got some new things coming down the pipeline very, very soon for y'all. And yeah, other than that, we're going to see y'all on Wednesday because y'all already know if you're watching this, it's 1:30 on Saturday. All right. So we will check y'all later. Y'all make sure you're good to one another. You guys make sure y'all safe. And other than that,
all right, guys.